Good evening. Welcome to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen meeting for the City of Hendersonville. This is March 28th, 2023. We're going to begin our meeting as we typically do, and that's with a prayer and a pledge. And fortunately tonight, we have Pastor Socrates Holgren with us. He is from Maranatha Assemblies of God on Centerpoint Road. We appreciate you very much being with us, but more importantly, we appreciate what you do for our community, you as well as your church. So we're going to ask you to go ahead and pray for us. And please stay standing. We'll follow that up with a pledge.
Thank you. Greetings. My name is Socrates Holgren. As you know, my wife Carmen, minister also for the church, and I want to raise a prayer. And I'm very honored to be here for opening prayer. To me, this is very significant, very important that we have the Lord first before our business. And we want to honor also in the scripture that says in 2 Chronicles 2:7-14. It's very quick. It's a passage of the Bible that really speak to us. It says, "If my people, which are called by my name, humble themselves, if my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray, and seek my face, and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven, and I will forgive their sin, and I will heal their land. Now my eyes and my ears will be open to attend to their prayer at this place." Let's pray. Let's ask God for healing in these members of the board here, Jay Hales and Jim Waters. Let's also intercede for the elected official of Hendersonville. Let's also pray for the police department, the police officers, and their personnel. Let's pray also for the public and private school and the teachers in Hendersonville and the children that we are raising right now. The financial strength of our economy here in Hendersonville and Sumner County. Let's pray. Dear God, we come before you with a humble heart, asking, Lord, for your mercy. Bless, Lord, this meeting, Lord. Allow the wisdom of your word, Father, to penetrate and give us, Lord, oh, Lord, positive outcome of this meeting. Bless this nation, Lord. Bless this community, Lord. Hendersonville is a growing community, strong, and by their faith, Lord, that we will prevail. We will hold on to the Lord, and we will declare the blessings of the Lord. And I declare this in Jesus' mighty name. And I know, Father, that you are in control. And I bless, Lord, every member of this board. And I know, Father, the wisdom in the financial, in the society that we are in now, Lord, will seek your presence, Lord. And I declare this in the mighty name of Jesus. And I know, Father, that we are to call for our neighbors' community, like in Green Hills, Lord, this devastating tragedy that happens on Monday. I declare right now your blessing upon this family member that are hurt, Lord, for this loss. In Jesus' mighty name we pray. In Jesus' name I pray. And the people of God says, Amen. Amen.
And again, that was Pastor Socrates Holgren from Maranatha Assemblies of God on Centerpoint Road. Thank you. Thank you again, what you do and what for your church does for our community.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm going to ask Annette to call the roll, which I typically do if we have more than one person missing. So go ahead, Annette.
Burdorf. Here. Collins.
Here.
Dixon. Garton.
Here.
Garza.
Here.
Goodwin.
Here.
Martin.
Here.
Peterson.
Here.
Robertson.
Here.
Sassy.
Here.
Skidmore.
Here.
Waters. Clary.
Here.
11.
Okay, appreciate that, Annette. Next, I entertain a motion that we accept the agenda that was provided to you. We have a motion from Alderman, who was it? Alderman Sassy, and a second from Alderman Goodwin. I want to ask you all to add something just before adjournment, right after Chief of Operations report, and that will be an executive session. I don't think that will last for more than 5 minutes. We need to hear from our attorney on 2 items, and we have to leave this room and go do that. And I suggest we do that right before an adjournment. So I'd appreciate if somebody would make that motion. We have a motion from Alderman Collins and a second from Alderman Garza. Any discussion on adding executive session right before adjournment? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. So we'll do that right there. Alderman Sassy, give me 1 second. Okay. Alderman Sassy, go ahead.
Yes, during our finance committee today, we approved the new resolution, the 2023-18, which is the investment policy for the city. And I would like to get that going as soon as possible so our money can actually work for us instead of us working for that money. And so I'm asking that we waive the 2-week rule and add this to our agenda tonight.
We've got a motion for Alderman Sassy. A second from Alderman Garza. Any discussion on that? So we would put that we make that item 2 under ordinance and resolutions?
Yep.
Okay. Any discussion on that item? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no. That passes unanimously. Now we're back to the main motion. We've amended it twice. Any other discussion? Any other proposals? All those in favor of approving the agenda as it was amended, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. That passed unanimously. Thank you. We have no presentations. We have no public hearings. I'm going to entertain a motion that we approve the minutes from March 14, 2023, the minutes that you received in your packet a couple days ago. We have a motion from Alderman Peterson, I think that was, and then we have a motion from Alderman Bergdorf and a second from Alderman Peterson. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the minutes as they were provided to you, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. That passes unanimously. We have nobody who has signed up for citizen comments. We don't have a consent agenda. Now we're on to the ordinance and resolutions. We have reading of Resolution 2023-11. This is a resolution to accept a fleet replacement schedule for the city police and fire departments and to establish that fleet replacement schedule. Considerations be included regularly as part of each annual budget. Alderman Collins.
I would like to just speak to this briefly. Or
Make
yes,
a
you
motion for me, please.
I was so moved.
We have a motion from Alderman Collins and a second from Alderman Sassy. Alderman Collins, go ahead.
What I just want to say is that we took, I say we because I worked with Jesse, who had worked with both police and the fire departments, and we took a moderate approach on the schedule. There were numbers run for replacing vehicles and fire apparatus sooner and later, and we felt like the kind of middle of the road approach provided us with a financially conservative number where we would be budgeting for what we need instead of getting in a position where we had specifically police cars breaking down, and we were making adjustments to our budget to purchase vehicles. And we did have a provision in here, which I unfortunately am not able to see well enough to read. There is a part of this that says that this is subject to any other safety and or repair issues on any specific vehicle, so that if we have a vehicle that is giving us a lot of trouble, it may need to jump line. And if we have a vehicle that is just trouble, we don't have an obligation to replace it. So we're not just saying this is the end all and be all. This is the guideline pending the condition of the vehicles at that time. But my intent was and is for us to be very intentional and purposeful about our replacement of the vehicles and the fire apparatus, such that if we have a lean year and we can't buy the number of police cars We can't put money aside for a new fire engine. We are aware that we are making that decision, and we are aware of what we need to do to catch up.
Alderman Collins, thank you. Alderman Robertson.
Yes, thank you. Could I ask Mr. Eckenroth a couple of questions? I had asked this to be postponed because he wasn't here at the last meeting, so I've got just a brief couple of questions.
I'll get you in a minute.
Welcome back, Mr. Eckenroth.
Third line.
I wanted you to explain why this is good policy for this board. It's a drastic change from the way this board has acted in the past. In the past, based upon available budgets, we've made purchases when we could. So this is a pretty drastic change in the way we've done things in the past. So explain why this is good for the city.
Yeah, I think, when we look at the budget year over year, if you can make your budget as consistent as possible, it's helpful because we don't necessarily have revenue spikes every year. But when you have a fire apparatus like a ladder truck, that's almost $2 million. And you may pay for it every 5 years, every 10 years in your budget. It's going to make your budget have, on the expenditure side, it's going to have a spike in your budget. So if the city can prepare for that, plan for that, and, in essence, store grain for those years when you need to spend that money, number one is it puts money in the coffers for when that expense comes. And then number two, if you plan for it and budget for it put money aside every year, it allows your budget to stay flatter so you're not surprised in a year that you need to purchase something.
Yeah, for example, like this last mid-year budget, we had to buy a new fire engine, custom fire engine, plus a number of patrol cars.
Right.
So this would kind of level that out.
Right.
Hopefully over the years, okay. That's all I've got for you. I have an amendment that I would like to discuss with the board, and I've thought long and hard about this. I want to thank, first of all, the sponsor of this resolution and the Finance Committee, or the Public Safety Committee, for bringing this to us. The present resolution establishes as policy of this board a scheduled replacement plan for city vehicles used by our first responders. The policy, if adopted, would establish a line item reserve for vehicle replacements of at least $2,116,417 a year. So that would, adoption of this policy would set the expectation of this expenditure for future budgets. All of us are equally yoked to support our first responders with the equipment they need to protect our citizens and property. If graded, I believe that BOMA would receive an A, because time and time again, we have confirmed this commitment by our actions and our support of purchases for both fire and police. I support wholeheartedly establishing such a policy, and I want to thank Mr. Eckenroth for suggesting it. It's good budget making. However, I do have some observations that I would like to read into the record. It is my opinion that such a large line item annual expenditure will reduce this board's discretionary spending and will limit our ability to fund other worthy projects important to the public. It may also, if this policy is strictly adhered to, necessitate future tax increases. Additionally, the city is currently undergoing a pay study, which I predict, based on the economic situation, will recommend major increases in employee pay because of the state of current economic affairs. I want to look for savings and efficiencies in our operations wherever they may hide, so that we will have the resources to begin to address the recommendations of the pay study. I commit to this point that I want to support all I can the recommendations of the pay study. All of these factors then necessitate for us to get the details right. For quite some time, I have advocated the drive for our city to be more efficient with the spending of tax dollars. In my over 40 years at the state and local government experience, that I have concluded that there is always room for increased efficiencies in government. I am very pleased that the staff is following up and searching for those efficiencies, and I look forward to seeing the fruits of your labor. Philosophically, I believe that a vital function of a legislative body such as BOMA is to drive government organizational efficiencies. I believe our citizens demand that of us. Unlike the private sector where competitive forces drive efficiencies, there are no competitive forces for the public sector. The political accountability to citizen forces the legislative branch to act as the surrogate for private sector competitive forces to drive efficiencies. I think that's one of the reasons why our founders required Congress to be elected every 2 years so that they would have an ear for the public. I believe this is our fiduciary responsibility. I have reviewed Exhibit A of the resolution, and I have some amendments, Mayor, to propose that I believe improves the efficiencies of this policy, meaning it saves taxpayer funds without sacrificing providing reliable and safe vehicles for our first responders. My philosophy is simple. It's common sense. We should not keep in operations a vehicle 1 year longer than its useful life. But on the contrary, we should not take out of service a vehicle short of its useful life. We should drive efficiencies in every aspect of our city's operations, even in the vehicle replacement. The balancing of vehicle operational longevity and the public safety effectiveness is not a zero-sum game. Both can be achieved as long as we have a mechanism, and there is such a mechanism, as was explained, in place to address unique situations as they surface. For example, if we have to replace an engine in a vehicle, then that's an economic situation that the staff would have the ability to address. So if you would pass out my amendment. I'm passing out a proposed amendment to Schedule A. If you'll look at it.
This is on page 8 of your agenda.
Just 1 year more. Thank you. The amendment that I have passed out, in short, my amendment will reduce the annual reserve amount from $2,116,417 to $1,776,980 for an annual savings of almost $340,000. My amendment will still, as I've mentioned, allow for the early retirement and replacement of a vehicle or an apparatus if economics warrant. So I move for the police department vehicle replacement, that 1 year is added to the life of each vehicle in each of the 3 categories, along with an increase in the maximum mileage from 100 to 125,000 miles, whichever comes first. So if a vehicle reaches the 6th year, it will be replaced regardless of the miles on that vehicle. For the fire department apparatus, that, by the way, that change in the police vehicle by 1 year, that small incremental change, will save $234,416 annually to this city. For the fire department apparatus, we have decided, I think justifiably so, to purchase custom fire engines at a premium price so as to extend the useful life of a fire engine. My proposal recognizes this fact. Therefore, I further move that fire engines will be scheduled to be replaced at 17 instead of 15 years for active service. Upon 17 years, fire engines will go into the reserve status for 5 years for occasional use as needed. The estimated cost of a fire engine today is $820,000. Further, I move that ladder trucks be replaced every 20 instead of 15 years. The estimated current cost of a ladder truck is $1.8 million in today's dollars and is by far the most expensive piece of equipment the city operates. And we need ladder trucks. Currently, we have 2 ladder trucks in operations to serve the city. The replacement order date for these 2 trucks would be in 2024 and 2026. In addition to the 2 ladder trucks, we'll also need to order 2 additional fire engines during this same period of time. So the estimate for these 2 engines, according to the staff analysis, and the 2 ladder trucks from 2024 to 2026 is over $5 million under current price estimates. These ladder trucks are used less than fire engines. They do not pump water, which from my research is a common source of maintenance issues for fire engines. And we should have a longer life if properly maintained and efficiently used. These minor changes in the vehicles for the fire department will save the city $105,019 annually. In closing, whenever there's an expenditure of public funds, I look hard for savings. Always have and always will. I think that I have found the sweet spot on these large expenditures, which properly balances efficiency and effectiveness without risking the safety or reliability of first responders. I would appreciate your support for this common sense change that will save taxpayers almost $340,000 per year for vehicle replacement, and I am available for any questions. Thank you, Mayor, and I so move this amendment.
Alderman Robertson, I'm going to ask for a second, just a second. What I'm going to ask you to do is what you're asking is that this become Exhibit A? Is that-
Well, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, either that or staff can take this information and put it in the proper form.
Okay, so this is, what we're talking about is Exhibit A. If we want to do that, I do think that on what you passed out, we need to include mileage under the police vehicles because that's not on this sheet. And staff
Okay.
may come back and come up with a better form regardless, but I think your motion needs to be to adopt this and add mileage for the police vehicles of $125,000, whichever comes first.
125,000 miles.
Miles, yes.
Whichever comes first.
Whichever comes first, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you're making that part of your motion, I'm going to look for a second. We have a second to Alderman Robertson. I'm going to second this because I want to talk about it a little bit. The savings there is very appealing to me. And I see that a lot of times city governments and all types of governments get into problems that they're forced to raise taxes, they're forced to make some cuts because they have some obligations that were set on them years and years and years in advance. And so that's why I want to second that and have some discussion about it. So I appreciate this. Let's go to Alderman Goodwin. I'm sorry, Alderman Bergdorf is actually next, but you turned off your microphone.
Back on.
Okay, there we go. You're good.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate the idea behind this amendment, and I do like the money savings. I think that I'm not sure about the metrics because miles are different in each vehicle. So, for instance, the patrol vehicles, they run all the time, do they not? So that wears the life of vehicles. So I think a better understanding of some of the metrics that we're trying to look at would be helpful for us to be able to make a good decision and formulate a plan to maintain the vehicle and to replace the vehicles. That's about all I got.
Alderman Bergdorf, thank you. Alderman Goodwin.
I just have some concerns about Mr. Roberson's amendment. One of my concerns, I've done a lot of research the last week when this was proposed and looked up different things different departments were using throughout the country. My biggest concern is the savings on, let's just say, the police vehicles. You run those over 100,000 miles, your repair costs, in my opinion, are going to equal more than $340,000 that you would save. So I don't really think it's efficient to keep those vehicles any longer than the 5 years, 100,000 miles. Also, your value that you would get for the car depreciates even further. So I'm not really for extending that any longer. I think doing the fleet replacement like it's scheduled with the 5 years, 100,000 miles, and the fire engine at 15 years is being efficient with, like I said, with the repair cost and all. I definitely want to save the taxpayers money, and I think by doing the 5-year, 15-year is saving money on the front end. Also, if Chief Bush could help me for just a second, is it the Firefighters Association or who comes out with the standards?
So NFPA is the National Fire, what is that? Protection Agency. Okay, thank you.
So their recommendation is 15 years, if I'm not mistaken, and then 5 years is a reserve. So if we go against that, we're going against what they recommend. So I'm not really comfortable with that either. I am very comfortable with the way that it stands, and I would like to add my name as a sponsor with the way that it stands.
Okay, let's take care of this amendment, and then we'll come back to that.
Okay, I'm sorry.
You know, feel free to remind me before we vote. Okay. Thank you, Alderman Goodwin. Alderman Peterson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm in support of this resolution and the amendment and everyone's input. However, I'm thinking, should this go back to Public Safety Committee to discuss more details? I'm just throwing that out. And I don't want to make another amendment, but shouldn't we also include Public Works, Planning, and Parks vehicles as well?
So all those are possibilities if you want to take it back to public safety. We talked about Public Works as well. The reason that we didn't include some of those vehicles is that they're not that expensive, even though we do replace them sort of on a timeline. They're just not a big hit on the budget.
Okay.
And by the way, so if you want to make a motion to send this back to public safety or any committee, to be honest with you, that you can do that.
Yes, I would like to make
Let me interrupt you real quick. We have a couple other people that want to speak.
okay.
You are welcome to make that motion now.
Yeah, I'd like to make I'm going to wait till everyone speaks.
Okay. I will do my best to come back
Yes.
to you before we vote on this amendment.
Thank you.
Okay, appreciate that, Alderman Peterson. Let's go to Alderman Sassy.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't know if this is something the chief needs to answer, or maybe Ms. Collins can answer, or maybe Jesse, Mr. Eckenroth can answer. But it was, I seem to remember there being a requirement of almost a warranty requirement on the fire engines of 15 years. That their effective usefulness was 15 years because at that point they became more expensive to operate. Is that accurate?
Whoever's going to answer that, I need you to come up here. Thank you.
So NFPA 1901 is the recommendation. That's what they go by. Their recommendation is 15 years for frontline, 5 years as a reserve status. And so the issues you start having after that 15th year, the safety standards have changed, just like the one that we just purchased that you folks were so gracious to give us. The safety standards have changed completely in apparatus. We just had an ECM board go out on the one that we have that's 24 years old right now. We're spending about $3 grand on it just to get it back on the road so we have a reserve engine. So my personal feelings are you're taking good money and throwing at an old piece of equipment that should have been shelved years ago. We all have worked, Mr. Roberson, Mr. Eckenroth, police, fire, have all worked to come up with a plan that the city's never had before for apparatus replacement. 1901 is a recommendation by that committee, so if you had an issue that came up and it was 22 years old, if we were to be in court, that would be what they would hold as peers, that this recommendation, why are you driving an apparatus 22 years old? Why is it still on the road when our recommendation is 15 and 5 as a reserve status? And so that's, you know, again, you're sitting in front of folks that told you what the recommendations were, and you went against those. And so I don't know, I'm not a lawyer. Potentially there could be some issues there with leaving yourself open for some liability.
And is that what you just remarked on, is that applicable to both the fire engines and the ladder trucks?
Yes, sir. 1901 covers both engines and truck companies. Yes, sir. Now, as I spoke with Mr. Roberson, if he doesn't mind me sharing that, obviously, if we ever had an economic downturn like we had in 07, 08, I mean, I've been around for a long time. We may not have the money to move forward. It may not be feasible to purchase one that year. If that's a year that come up that we got in a financial pinch or we were watching our pennies, I think anybody in their right mind would work with any board to say, you know what, we can extend this another year. And maybe next year things would be better. I think that's reasonable to ask, depending on the situations. And I shared that with Mr. Roberson in our conversations. I feel like that's a standard that we should follow. We put a lot of time and effort into that, and that's a national recommendation. And most agencies, or even some agencies, bigger agencies, of course, they've got a bigger pocketbook or larger debt, however you want to look at that, they go to 12 years. And it depends on your volume of calls, too. You know, we could extend the life of a truck company, as I told Mr. Roberson, if we got fast cars. Because right now, those two dual companies, Station 3 and Station 5, if they're on an EMS run, the engine company is, and another one comes in that zone, that truck company responds to that. And it's wear and tear on it. There's no doubt about that. If we had fast cars in those locations, which you're talking about a $50,000 SUV and the staff to put in that, that's a little more palatable for folks to digest because you're not sending those truck companies on those medical calls. But again, those are some things that we can work through on down the road. I think the biggest concentration that we were trying to do with Mr. Eckenroth is get a plan in place that we've never had before, that we don't have the aha moments of, oh my goodness, now it's going to cost us $820,000. It's planned for. If we don't need to touch the money because of an economic downturn, we leave it sitting and we move on and keep using the ones we have. And I think anybody would be reasonable enough to work through that.
Thank you, Chief. Hold on, we might need you again. Alderman Sassy.
I mean, I'm all about saving money, but I'm also about looking to the future and planning for the future. I greatly support this, but I don't think it's detailed enough. I mean, specifying 5 years or 100,000 miles, 8 years, 100,000. I think there needs to be more meat to it.
You're talking on the police side of things?
Hold on, Chief Bush. Hold
Oh,
on.
sorry.
On all sides.
Okay.
So, while I really do appreciate the effort that Alderman Robertson put into this, and it really gives a good detailed account on the expenditures and the savings we can get in each area, I have a feeling that we're going to be seeing probably sooner rather than later than we would like to admit. There's going to be some changes in our economics in the city. And we need to be conservative and plan for that. But while still maintaining a safe environment for our citizens, because that's ultimately our job, is keeping our citizens safe. So I agree with Alderman Peterson that this needs to be more detailed, needs to be sent back to, I do not want to drop this. I want to see this through. But I want us to do some more digging. I want us to do some more research on this and bring something that can not only, I mean, maybe we're asking for too much. Maybe we're asking for the best of both worlds here, but I think there's a way that where we can be wise with our citizens' money and plan, because I think that is wise to plan, while still preparing for the future on this and spending less money on an annual basis. I don't want to see this be put into a budget item and then us not being forced to carry it out, and we just don't have it for other things that have to happen right here and now. There's a lot of money that we're asking for to be spent in the budget in the next couple of years. And maybe we don't need to fund it 100%. That's something else to consider. Maybe we put in enough money so we have a reserve to accomplish a majority of the expenditure, but then when those expenditures come up, because we don't know the foreseen of what's going to happen in the future, now we've got a majority of the funds in there, and then we just have to come back as a board and say, okay, we funded 75% of this, here's the other 25. We don't know what the economy is going to do. We don't know the growth of our city. There's a lot of unknowns here. So I really don't want us to set ourselves up for failure down the road and have to come back as a board. I think funding it partially could be a good alternative. And to that, I think it should go back to the public safety to maybe relook at this and revamp it maybe.
But you're not making a motion quite yet, am I correct?
I'm going to wait for Mr. Peterson to make his
Okay.
motion.
We also have Alderman Skidmore who's next to speak. So Alderman Skidmore. Thank you,
Thank
Alderman
you.
Sassy.
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate it, and I appreciate your comments on this. Chief, you've had the opportunity to look at this, is that correct?
I have not seen
You have not seen this at all, and it came up before the Board of Aldermen. You want to look at it?
that. That's totally up to you guys.
No, here. Feel free. There you go. You can have it.
Thank you.
That concerns me you hadn't seen that. No disrespect to the alderman from 6 or the chief. I'm in support of Alderman Peterson's motion that this goes back to committee, but not only should it go back to committee, but you, sir, along with your staff, should have the opportunity to look at that, because it's such an important issue, because we're spending taxpayers' money. We are looking or continuing to look when we purchase your vehicles, as well as the police, as well as Public Works, as well as even codes, believe it or not. This should be looked at as well, for the safety and the welfare of your employees. You should take a look at this and have this opportunity now for when you all meet, what, in 2 weeks? Is that it? In 2 weeks, when you all look at this, that everybody be on the same playing field. I think it's important that not only the fire and the police observe this or take a look at this, but I think it's also incumbent upon us to look in Public Works as well as codes, as well as all city vehicles. I've been in this game long enough to know, and you do too, how many years sometimes some of the cars or the vehicles say, well, this should have been replaced 10 years ago, and we don't want to get to that. But at the same time, this is a good idea, but I think it really needs to be, as some of my distinguished colleagues have said earlier, that it needs to be investigated a little more than what it is this evening. This is just presented. And I would say, and I would ask the mayor this as well, and looking at the amendment that I gave you there, and in looking, no, you can have it, I'm good. No, I'm good, yeah, I saw it, thank you. And looking at this, it almost makes the resolution completely different than what the resolution initially said this evening. And if that's the case, under our rules on the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, it doesn't even need to be discussed tonight. It needs to go back to committee to where you can look at it and formulate what is in this amendment into the resolution that is before us tonight. So in closing with that, I encourage you all to go back and investigate it. I support Alderman Peterson's motion that goes back to the Public Safety Committee, but also I think, and I don't know how the mayor wants to do this or not, I think it needs to look at all our vehicles, not only just you guys and the police, But I think it needs to look in public works, I think it needs codes, and I think it needs every city vehicle we've got in this, that's out there in that parking lot. We're trying to save taxpayers' money here. It's a good idea to do it, but if we're gonna do it, let's do it and do it right, and not just some hodgepodge and say, okay, we're gonna let the police, the fire and the police do that, and then we've got all these other vehicles out here that we're not caring about. You don't do your own car like that, do you?
No.
I don't think you did. I don't know of anybody on here that does that. Well, maybe the mayor does, I don't know. Just teasing, buddy.
Okay.
But in all seriousness, I think we do need to take a look at all the vehicles and not just the two. So thank you, Mayor, and I do support Peterson's amendment. Thank you.
Can I?
Appreciate it.
can I
Well,
make one-
we need to go back over here. I still might need you, don't go too far, although, let's go to Alderman Collins.
Actually,
He was next, but you haven't spoken on the amendment yet.
oh, okay. I just want to say that I fully acknowledge that this subject is very subjective. When does one replace a car? I know as Alderman Skidmore alluded to, in my house, when a car breaks down and you're like, do you put more money into this car? Is it time to start over? It's very subjective, so I appreciate that we all have a different opinion on this and our values are a little different on it. And I think I'm over here thinking, well, this category I could add a year, this one maybe, but not this one and not that one. And I think that we're all going to be like that because this is such a subjective thing that we're not going to agree on every category and have a document that we're all just in love with. But for fire, the NFPA issues nationally established guidelines, which I think is a blessing because there's this huge organization that's done all of this research and they tell us this is the way to go about it. And I don't want for our city to be a city that functions below a national standard for fire truck replacement. Police vehicles, there is no guideline because they are used so differently. They spend so much time idling and it's really, at its root, it's a car that we soup up to be a police car. And we all know from experience, I can get the same car that you get on the same day and mine is just always broken and yours has no issues. So that's why we do have to look at this and figure out something that we can all go home and be happy about. I do want to point out that the savings on Alderman Roberson's list are gross savings. It is not net savings that doesn't include additional maintenance or repairs or the man-hours involved in accomplishing those repairs and maintenance, or the reduction in the resale value. So that is also something that you wouldn't know until it happens, how it would be reduced to get you to your net savings. So I understand using the gross savings amount, but it's potentially slightly inflated. The economy, we are all concerned about the economy and how are we going to pay our people what they're worth. And I think that for me personally, and probably all of us, we agree that investing in the people is imperative to the success of the city. The economy has been outside of the norm since COVID happened. We cannot control nor predict. We have predictions that say there's a recession coming, but it's barely going to impact Tennessee as a state. We don't know how it's going to impact Middle Tennessee or Hendersonville. This is outside of our control. What we can control is our intent to save and provide for our public safety. And that is what this ordinance is attempting to do, or resolution rather, is attempting to do. I just want to thank Alderman Roberson for bringing this up because it is something that we need to discuss. 4 new apparatus in 5 years. I think that speaks to why we need to get a plan together. That's going to be horrendous on our budget, and we need to start working towards those replacements soon. That's all I have for now.
Thank you, Alderman Collins. Alderman Robertson.
I've gone out of my way to be very transparent on this amendment. I want to thank the staff. They've worked with me on this. I have, as Chief Bush said, I have met with Chief Bush about this, and I have told him what I intended to do. I didn't have the numbers, so I didn't have Alderman Skidmore. I didn't have this handout, but I did tell the chief, both chiefs, I met with both the police and fire, and told them what I was proposing and give them an opportunity to beat it up. And what I really don't want to do is I don't want to raise expectations that of something that we're not going to be able to do. And I just, in looking at what we have ahead of us, folks, we're not going to be able to do this. So I'm trying my best to extend the life where I think that it's possible. Folks, we're looking at a new garbage contract. We're looking at Exit 8. And I'm, as Capital Projects Chairman, I'm trying to find every dollar we can save where we can get that project started. I think adopting this policy, and if we have strict adherence to it, it's going to make us moving forward on Exit 8 harder, as other projects. So again, we just, plus the pay study. So again, I appreciate everybody's questions and comments. I think they're excellent. I think this is what a legislative body is supposed to do, is to debate, is to talk about issues and come with a consensus. And I do want to find common ground. So if this, and I'll support the Alderman Peterson's to go back to public safety, I'm willing to compromise Chairman Goodwin to maybe on vehicles, add 1 year, but maybe cap it at 100,000 miles. I mean, that's what the police chief told me he would like to do, but I wanted to bring what I thought the maximum that we could get out of this. So I think there is some area. I would like to ask the chief, Mayor, this question. By far the largest expenditure is the ladder trucks.
Yes, sir.
And I supported, the fire engine for the new fire hall. I supported the one we just approved in mid-year budget. But it's my understanding of the research that I've looked at, and I've even talked to some firemen in other localities, that the ladder trucks, you should be able to get longer longevity out of the ladder trucks. Do you think that the fire department could come up with some efficiencies to try to extend the life of this 1.8? By the time we purchase it, it'll probably be $2 million. This fire truck, this ladder truck that we don't use that much, it doesn't have a pumper on it, does it?
No, sir.
So, can we extend the life of those ladder trucks to try to save the city a little money?
So as I talked with you, first let me clarify one thing. When this was handed out, Mr. Eckenroth said that he did send this to me in an email. I did not know that. So I don't want anybody to think that Mr. Roberson was trying to pull the wool over anybody's eyes. We did discuss this. As far as the ladder trucks, again, I'll go back to the fast cars. That's an opportunity to reduce the wear and tear. And then, as I told you as well, during our accreditation process that we're currently going through right now, we're going to reduce the opportunity for those truck companies to run. So you catch a fire alarm at Lowe's. Status data says about 96% of the time those are false alarms. Well, typically prior to date, we run 3 engines and 2 trucks to those calls. We feel like with the cost of fuel, the cost of tires, the wear and tear on these apparatus, accredited agencies look at reducing the amount of equipment they send on those calls. Plus, it's a danger to people in the community. These vehicles running emergency traffic to a false alarm, that puts a lot of folks at risk. And so we're looking at changing that response model to certain calls as well, that we're going to send a primary engine and a primary truck and a supervisor, and that's it to those. And we've got the data to support it, so that will give you some longevity. If we got the fast cars, again, We could save some wear and tear on engines and truck companies if we had those. Because again, we're using those on the medical calls, and about 80% of what we do is medical runs. And so you have the potential, again, to buy an SUV, but then you got to look at staffing it. So that would be a matter of where does the staff come from? What does it cost? Those vehicles are $50,000 a year. You know, you get an SUV, you put medical equipment in it. You have folks that are trained to be firefighters as well. So if we have a big enough scenario that they would be able to fight fire or offer medical treatment. Same thing that we do with all of our staff right now. So there are ways that we're looking at trying to do that. We understand that these things are not cheap. We understand that it's difficult to purchase these at the price that they are. So we're going to try to do everything. Our maintenance program, I would match it against anybody's. We do 2 DOT inspections a year, make sure everything's working correctly. We pump test them, we ladder test them. We do everything that we can to get the longevity of life out of those. And a 20-year purchase, I understand $820,000 is a lot of money, but you extend that over 20 years, that's $41,000 a year. That's a return on investment that you get from your spending of $820,000. Now, sure, it's a little painful at first when you're trying to do the 2 ladder trucks or 2 engines in a ladder truck within a small time frame, but that's to get us to where we need to be.
Chief, thank you. Alderman Roberts, anything else?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that the record, I did talk to both chiefs.
Yes, sir.
And not only that, I've done something that I've never had seen done at this board. I notified the Public Safety Committee that I was planning to bring an amendment. So I'm not trying, board to hide anything. I'm trying to be as open as I can. This is a good discussion. If we can save $100,000, if we can save $200,000, then, we're doing the taxpayers a good deal. I believe, and we'll talk about this more in the budget workshop, I believe this board is going to have to look at raising taxes. If we're going to do all these things, get ready to raise taxes. There is no other option, I don't think, unless we can start coming up with cuts and more efficiencies in every department that we have. So with that, Mayor, should I withdraw my amendment, or should I just let it lay on the table and agree to Alderman Peterson's to send it back to committee?
If you don't withdraw it and we choose to send this back to committee, it's going to have the same effect. Totally up to you how you want to do it.
Okay, let me just leave it on the table.
Okay.
And that way it'll be a guide, maybe a straw man for the Public Safety Committee to discuss.
Okay, appreciate that. Alderman Peterson.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Chief. Appreciate that. Again, I do support the resolution and the amendment. However, I would like to see it have the public safety's stamp of approval. And I would like for that to go back to committee so they can sit down and kind of come up with a compromise that everyone is happy with.
Okay.
If I may volunteer Alderman Roberson, to be also a co-sponsor, if I may, with Alderman Goodwin. I'm not drinking. And
That water must really be strong.
and Alderman Collins, I think the 3 of those as sponsors would be great moving forward. And I would like to make a motion to send this back to public safety.
Okay, we have a second from Alderman Sassy. Alderman Peterson, do you have a preference that it come back to this board in 2 weeks, or do you have no preference? Because public safety meets in 2 weeks, and we sort of need to give them some direction.
Yeah, I have no preference. Okay. I'm going to leave that up to public safety.
Okay. And the sponsors, I guess.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Mayor.
Alderman Sassy, we have a second. This is to send this back to public safety and come back to us at some time in the future. Okay. Any discussion on that? Yes. No. All those in favor of sending this back to the Public Safety Committee and coming back to us in the future, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no. That passes unanimously. Thank you. Now we're on to the next item on our agenda, which is brief committee reports. Our first, we have a new item on the agenda, sorry. This is Resolution 2023-18. This is a resolution to revise the investment policy for the city of Hendersonville. Alderman Sassy, motion?
So moved.
We have a motion from Alderman Sassy. I'll second that since I am the sponsor. Any discussion on this? You do something? Go ahead. Go ahead. Did you want to
No.
Okay.
I'm good. Yeah.
Okay. All those in favor of Resolution 2023-18, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. That passes unanimously. Now we're on to other agenda items and then to reports. Brief committee reports. Our first one is from Chairman Dixon, who isn't with us. Chairman Goodwin, do you want to give a report, or do you want to wait till Alderman Dixon returns? Oh, I'm sorry. I've got the wrong committee. Chairman Bergdorf, do you want to give a report, or do you want to wait till Alderman Dixon returns?
We can go ahead and do a report if Ms. Ingersoll will, or Jesse will present for
Well,
us.
that's just cheating.
That's just cheating. Yes, it is. That's what, yeah, that's right. It's a trick.
I want to have Tamara come up. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. All right, so Finance Committee. We went ahead and there was an ordinance 23-08, and what this is for is to amend the budget for the damages that we've recently had due to the windstorm that came through. So we will be reimbursed through insurance, but we have to appropriate the money first. So that passed. And then we read the resolution 2318 with the investment policy. That was just an update. MTAS had some housekeeping items that they wanted us to just include in that policy. So we discussed that. We went over sales tax. Sales tax is still trending positively. It is starting to, the gains over the prior year are starting to get smaller and smaller, but we still have positive gains. And we do anticipate to be over what we projected during the mid-year budget. So we anticipate sales tax to come in slightly above that. We talked about budget schedule, budget revenues, and some new things that we're going to add on the finance side of the house for the budget next year.
Appreciate that. Anything else?
Thank you.
Chairman Bergdorf.
No, sir, that'll do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse. Appreciate that. Chairman Skidmore, Public Works.
Yeah, yes, thank you, Mayor. I'll keep it brief because I know we have a workshop and also executive committee this evening, but tonight on Public Works, we did have our meeting. We have a resolution accepting dedication of completed streets in the Hunt Club that will be coming for us shortly. We have also another resolution from the Parks Department about the Kaboom Community Playground Grant that will be coming before you. All these, by the way, were passed unanimously. And then we have a resolution, the mayor, to try to get coming before you in the next couple of weeks about the mayor signing an agreement with the social indoor advertising for the park facilities to benefit the park system. So those three items will be coming before this board in the next couple of weeks or so. We had a trash collection update. Was better than usual. We were very happy for that. So that went around. And then also we have a street light proposal that came before us on Mountainwood, and we decided to put, we were in favor of putting the street light, instead of at 104, we're going to put it at 110, and then our Public Works Department is going to notify the people at 104. It just makes better sense there at 110, where it affects the whole street instead of just one section. So, and we agreed with that. Also, want to let you know that we are working with the light synchronization program. It is going very well. We are still working in trying to get the whole system done, which we are doing it. The second phase of the construction is going to probably be starting in early spring, and so I'm real excited about that, where we're getting it done. Also, we had the Sanders Ferry Greenway update. That's going real well. We're still in the process of getting all that done. And we will probably, the walkway will be completed, hopefully, the section we're working on will be within this, by spring, if not sooner. But it just really depends on the weather. We've had great weather. Then the other thing that was asked by Alderman Roberson was about the stormwater grant. We still don't have any notification on the money coming back yet. So we've got our eye on it. We're going to keep asking about that. And in closing, I do want to say one thing. We've been now, I guess, about 2 weeks out from our disaster we had in Hendersonville about the weather, the high winds that came through and really dismantled Hendersonville. The electricity was out for several days on a lot of people, and I'm really sorry for that. Of course, the city has no jurisdiction over that. It's Cumberland Electric, Nashville Electric Service, and they did work tirelessly and effortlessly to correct that situation. And I want to thank the police department. I want to thank the fire department for the outstanding work, but more that they did by removing a lot of the tree debris that was all over Hendersonville. It was all over the streets. And I want to thank the Public Works Department because they did a remarkable job that they got out there and started cleaning immediately, even when the winds were out going. They were out there working effortlessly, trying to get the roads cleared up and the trees on the wires, and it was everywhere. I mean, I know I did, but I know that a lot of the aldermen were working, trying to get the electricity turned back in people's houses, and we were calling NES and putting that pressure on there, along with the mayor's office. So we were looking collectively on that. I want the people of Hendersonville know how proud I am of all of you. But I do want to say one thing in closing, Mayor. I had the opportunity to not only visit my district and see the weather damage, but I traveled the whole city to see what Public Works, and, because that's where I do. That's what I'm chairman of. But one thing that still continues to amaze me is when you go out and you look and you're seeing neighbor helping neighbor with the damage. It is the most wonderful feeling, I promise you, that when you see that helping neighbor in Hendersonville, it's almost an emotional thing, because it doesn't matter. Over the years that I've sat in this chair, I've seen tornadoes, I've seen floods, I've seen the high winds destroy homes or trees smashing into cars, and the people just get out, and they just get out there and help them. They don't even ask, say, can I help you? They just get out there and do it. And that's the most amazing thing about Hendersonville, is you don't have to ask anybody. If you need help, they're there. And so I want to give a thank you to the people of Hendersonville who worked their rear ends off and helped their neighbor. I'm proud of you, and we were all working, but I'm most proud of you all for doing that. And I cannot express enough to you how much that me as an alderman appreciated that effort. And I thank you for that. Thank you, Mayor.
Chairman Skidmore, thank you. Next on our agenda is the COO's report. Jesse?
Thank you for mentioning that, Alderman Skidmore. I do want to thank Andy Gilly and Trevor Cole in the parks. They also jumped right on the parks. I think they had a spreadsheet going about 8 seconds after the wind came in for all the damage, because they knew insurance reimbursement was going to happen, be right around the corner. So Andy and his team have worked really hard, but all the city departments were really just right on top of that cleanup, so thank you. All right, so we've kind of discussed the COO report being a little bit different. since I'm not a good public speaker, I'm just trying to come up with a way to be in front of the microphone less. So we've developed some graphs that'll really probably do a lot better job than I can do up here talking. So we've developed some metrics. I'm going to walk through them quickly. They're in your packet so you can look at them ahead of time. I'm probably typically not going to do this, but since this is the first time I've been here and had this report, I'm just going to walk through these. We're going to continue to add some metrics that we feel are important, but we wanted to get it started with the main metrics. And we'll update this on a monthly basis, so it'll sit in the packet and be stagnant for one of the meetings, and then we'll just update it on a monthly basis. With many of the sales tax and everything that we do, we kind of update those on a monthly basis, not on a biweekly. So the first metric is we're just looking at local sales tax revenue. And we're doing just a trend analysis. So when you look at that first graph, you can see that the split between 22 and 23 is starting to close a little bit. But still, like we've talked about, local sales tax is very good for the year. Second graph at the bottom just shows the local sales tax revenue year to date. So the increase over fiscal year 22, is a 8.15%. So we're still doing very well on sales tax. Next couple graphs in here are fire and police, their calls for service. So anytime a call comes in and they respond to it, they'll book it as a call for service. So it just kind of gives a history where they're at in the month, what they've been doing for the year. And then the bar chart on the very bottom, the column chart, it highlights in blue all the police calls and in red all the fire calls. So this gives a really good snapshot of public safety activity year to date. And then if we go into page 14, we'll start talking about new single family home permits. So this is, good economic indicator what's happening in the city, especially with single family residences. So you can see that fiscal year 23 is actually higher than it was in fiscal year 22. And then residential permit inspection activity is below that. That's a year to date, so we're a little bit lower on fiscal year 23, but our permits are actually a little bit higher. So it's a good snapshot of what our codes department is doing. Next page, which is 15. This is planning department, and they're going to issue use and occupancy permits. This is for businesses that are coming in or going into an existing space and changing the use or the occupancy. So it's just a chart of what they've done year over year. Projects approved are at the bottom, so you can see for fiscal year 23, we've had more residential projects and less commercial projects. Page 16, just all the upcoming events with parks. So this is a good place to go, and you can kind of get a couple weeks heads up on what's happening. We go to page 17. This is all the stormwater projects we planned for the year through our budget, and then the green is what we've completed. The paving, the column chart on the right is in lane miles, so you can see the blue is the budgeted section is a little bit more than what we've completed. That's because we added the mid-year budget. So we pretty much completed our paving, and then mid-year budget we added some more budget dollars to do more paving. There's some pictures at the bottom of just Public Works crew out cleaning up after the storm. And then the last page, page 18, just gives budgeted full-time positions by department for fiscal year 23. It's a good representation of kind of where most of the personnel are sitting in the departments. And then it gives a list of active recruitments below that. So all the positions that we have that we're actively recruiting for. So this will continue to be in the packet. Again, we'll do it once a month, and it'll just sit in there for the next month. And if there's certain metrics you want to see, please let me know. We're going to include some expense metrics in here as well and kind of make the report more useful. But this is at least a good place to start, and you should expect to get this every month. So that concludes my report.
Hold on one second. Alderman Peterson.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Eckenroth, excellent visuals. I appreciate that. Wanted to ask, have you had a chance to assess the property tax that was due in February? I was just wondering where we are with that. Would that be something that you could include next report
For what we've collected?
for the city property tax?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. And I would also like to thank the public who came out on Saturday to help clean up the city. We truly appreciate those efforts. And also, I had, you asked about metrics. I had requested Venn diagrams, but I didn't see any of those.
I think that was denied.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Peterson. Alderman Sassy.
Thank you, Mayor. Couple questions on this, and you may not have the answer to this, but I was just curious. Do you know why we saw an increase of police calls in January and February? I mean, it jumped up pretty significantly.
Yeah, it did. If you look, I think it's not as high as it was at the very beginning of the chart. I don't know the specifics behind why the calls
13.
came in at that point.
Oh, you know.
I think in, let's see, for police, we were a little bit higher in August. And I don't know that there's necessarily a rhyme or reason to all those calls, but I can follow up with the chief. I don't know what the spike was. That was between December and January where it really jumped up there. But still below the peak it was in fiscal year 22 in August.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just curious if you had any information on that. And then I was also seeing a lot of residential permits and inspections on here. Is that related to specific development or?
No, that's
You know,
all of them. And this is really just to compare year against year. So that was for the residential side of things. It could be a water heater. It could be a new home. It could be an electrical panel. It's just all those things to kind of capture the activity of what that department's doing.
Okay, I think it's good to understand that this isn't just new home construction, this is just home permits, right? So
Correct.
something that's being changed to existing homes could be part of this as well.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have, Mayor. Thanks.
Alderman Sassy, thank you. Jesse, thank you. Next, we have executive session. We'll come back from that, and the only other item we have on the agenda is to adjourn. But executive session, per state law, can only include the 13 of us and our city attorney. So we're going to go into this conference room right here, and I anticipate we'll be back in 5 or 10 minutes. You all are welcome to stay, but like I said, the only other thing on the agenda is to adjourn. Okay, we're back. We finished our executive session. We appreciate y'all's patience. Alderman Garden,
I'll motion to adjourn.
Alderman Goodwin.
Second.
All those in favor of motion to adjourn, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. That passed unanimously. We're adjourned. Thank y'all. Jason, we're good?